It was a bright morning on a busy city street. The kind of morning when everyone seemed to be rushing somewhere with purpose. Cars rolled past in steady lines. Footsteps echoed across the pavement. And conversations blended into the usual hum of downtown life. Among those moving quickly was a young black man named Jordan, dressed neatly in a white button-up shirt and black trousers. He carried a slim folder tucked under his arm. Inside were his resume, references, and everything he needed for the most important job interview of his life. He had prepared for days, barely sleeping from the excitement and pressure. Today was supposed to be the day things finally changed for him. As Jordan checked the time on his phone, his pace quickened. The interview was only a few blocks away, and he was determined not to be late. But just as he turned the corner onto a long sidewalk lined with shops and cafes, something caught his eye, something that made him stop instantly. An elderly woman had fallen on the pavement right outside a small blue storefront. Her grocery bag had torn open, spilling apples, oranges, and vegetables across the ground. Her umbrella lay collapsed beside her. She looked stunned, confused, and in pain, trying to push herself up but failing each time. People walked around her, glancing for a second but not stopping. Some were in a hurry, others unsure how to help, and a few simply pretended not to see. Jordan froze for a moment, torn between urgency and instinct. He knew stopping could cost him the job he desperately needed, but he also knew he couldn't walk past someone who clearly needed help. Without hesitation, he stepped forward. He lowered himself to one knee beside her and gently placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked softly, keeping his voice calm so she wouldn't panic. She looked up at him with watery eyes, embarrassed by the fall and overwhelmed by the scattered groceries around her. I'm so sorry," she murmured, struggling to catch her breath. "My leg gave out. I didn't mean to trouble anyone." "You're not troubling me," Jordan replied. "Let me help you." He carefully took her hand, supporting her as she tried to sit up. His other hand gathered the spilled groceries, placing the fruit back into what was left of the plastic bag. The woman winced when she moved her right leg, and Jordan immediately noticed. "Don't try to stand yet," he said. "Just take a moment." Several passers-by began to slow down, noticing that someone had finally stopped to assist her. A few stared, as if surprised that kindness still existed in the middle of a busy morning. Jordan stayed focused on the elderly woman, making sure she felt safe. He checked her arm, then her knee, noticing that she was shaking slightly from the shock. "What's your name, ma'am?" Jordan asked. "Evelyn," she said softly. "Thank you for stopping. Most people just kept walking." Jordan offered a reassuring smile. "You're safe now, Miss Evelyn. I've got you." He glanced again at the time on his phone, feeling the weight of his decision. The interview mattered, but the person in front of him mattered more. And Jordan knew, deep down, that he couldn't leave her there alone. The morning that should have been all about his future suddenly became something entirely different, and it all started with a simple act of compassion on a crowded city sidewalk. Jordan looked around, scanning the busy sidewalk for a safer place where Evelyn could rest. The pavement was too hard, too exposed, and people kept passing by without slowing down. "Let's move you over to that bench." "Okay," he said gently, pointing to a small public bench a few steps away, tucked against the side of a building. Evelyn nodded, though she looked nervous about moving her injured leg. "Take your time, we'll go slow," Jordan assured her. He slid one arm behind her back and offered his other hand for support. Evelyn gripped him tightly, relying on his strength as he helped her stand. She winced, but Jordan steadied her instantly. Together, they took careful, measured steps until they reached the bench. Jordan guided her down gently, making sure she was comfortable before kneeling beside her again. Her breathing was uneven, shaken by both the fall and the effort of moving. Jordan set the torn grocery bag at his feet and placed the rescued items beside it. He noticed her knee trembling, so he leaned in slightly. "Let me check your leg, okay? I just want to see if you bruised it or twisted it." Evelyn nodded quietly. Jordan examined her knee without causing pressure, observing the swelling that had begun to form. "It looks like you might have strained it," he said calmly. "You shouldn't walk on it until someone can take a proper look." Evelyn sighed, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." You must have somewhere important to be. Jordan hesitated for a second. But only a second. Don't worry about me. Right now. The priority is making sure you're alright. Evelyn studied his face with a soft, grateful expression. Most young men wouldn't stop. She whispered, "Thank you for being different." Jordan offered a small, reassuring smile, though inside he felt the pressure of time ticking by. His interview was becoming less and less likely. But he refused to let that distract him. "Your safety comes first," he repeated, making sure her back was fully supported by the bench. "We'll figure out the rest later." For the first time since the fall, Evelyn seemed to relax. The chaos of the street continued around them. But Jordan stayed focused, grounded, and steady, exactly what she needed. Jordan noticed that Evelyn's breathing was still uneven, and the swelling in her knee seemed to be getting worse. The bench offered some relief, but it was clear she needed more help than he could give. He glanced at the people passing by, hoping someone else might stop. Maybe someone who knew first aid or lived nearby. But most kept walking, their eyes shifting away as if afraid of being pulled into responsibility. Jordan took a slow breath and reached for his phone. "Evelyn, I'm going to call for medical assistance. Okay? They'll know exactly what to do." Evelyn's hand trembled slightly as she lifted it. No, I don't want to be a burden. I'll be fine. You should go. You've already wasted enough of your time on me." Jordan shook his head firmly. "You're not a burden, and I'm not leaving you alone here." His tone was calm but resolute, the kind of tone that made Evelyn stop protesting. He stepped a few feet away so he could hear the operator more clearly over the noise of the street. The morning traffic had grown louder, horns, distant construction, snippets of conversation. Jordan pressed one hand to his ear and made the call. "Yes. Hello. I need assistance for an elderly woman who's fallen and may have injured her leg. She's conscious but in pain. We're on Westfield Avenue, near the blue storefront." The operator asked several questions, and Jordan answered each one precisely while keeping his eyes on Evelyn. Once the call ended, he returned to her side. "They're sending someone. It shouldn't take long." Evelyn looked down at her hands, clearly embarrassed. "I didn't want to make a scene. I've lived here for years, and somehow it's still lonely." Jordan sat beside her on the bench, careful not to startle her. "You're not alone today," he said simply, "and it's okay to ask for help." Evelyn gave a weak smile, the first sign of relief since the fall. Jordan made sure she stayed warm, adjusting her coat so the wind wouldn't hit her directly. He kept scanning the street, waiting for the ambulance or support vehicle, while staying close enough so she wouldn't feel abandoned even for a moment. For Jordan, time continued slipping away, but his priority didn't change. Evelyn needed help, and he intended to make sure she got it. Jordan continued to watch the street carefully after ending the call, keeping an eye out for the approaching ambulance. The morning rush had intensified, and people flowed past the bench in waves, barely glancing at the elderly woman resting beside him. Some slowed down for a moment, curious about the situation, but quickly moved on. Still, Jordan stayed exactly where he was, not letting Evelyn feel abandoned. Evelyn pulled her coat a little tighter, and Jordan immediately noticed. "Are you cold?" he asked. She shook her head, but her hands said otherwise. Jordan took off his own jacket and gently placed it around her shoulders. "Here, it'll help keep the wind off you." Evelyn looked at him with surprise. "You're too kind," she whispered. "Most people don't stop for someone like me anymore. Everyone's always rushing, too busy to notice an old woman fall." Jordan sat at an angle where she didn't have to strain her neck to see him. "Maybe they're distracted," he said, "but I don't think kindness is gone. Sometimes it just takes one person to bring it back into the world." The words seemed to soften Evelyn's expression. She relaxed a little deeper against the bench, comforted not only by the jacket but by Jordan's steady presence. Her hands trembled less. Her breathing, though still uneven, began to settle. "Do you have family nearby?" Jordan asked gently, hoping the conversation would help her stay calm. "My children live in other states," she said. "They call when they can. But life keeps them busy. I try to manage everything myself, even when maybe I shouldn't." Jordan nodded slowly. Everyone needs help sometimes, even the strongest people. Evelyn gave him a faint smile. "And what about you? Someone must be waiting for you too, at a job interview." "Maybe?" Jordan hesitated but answered honestly. Yes, I was heading to one this morning. Evelyn's face fell instantly, guilt washing over her. Before she could apologize, Jordan continued, "But don't worry, you're safe now, and that's what matters." For a moment, Evelyn's eyes grew glossy. "Jordan, I wish more young men were like you." Jordan simply smiled, trying to ease the emotion building between them. He glanced again toward the street. And finally, faintly at first, he heard the distant sound of a siren approaching. "Help's on the way," he said softly. "Just hang in there, okay?" Evelyn nodded, holding onto his hand a little tighter as the siren grew louder. The siren grew louder in the distance, but it was still far enough that Jordan and Evelyn had several quiet minutes together. The rush of the city continued around them, but on that small bench, time seemed to slow. Jordan kept an eye on the street, but most of his attention stayed on Evelyn, making sure she felt safe and not alone. Evelyn rested her hands on her lap, fingers slightly curled from the lingering shock. Her voice softened as she spoke, almost as if the presence of someone willing to listen finally allowed her thoughts to come forward. "You know, I didn't expect anyone to stop today," she murmured. "People have places to be, lives to live. Sometimes I feel like the world moves faster than I can keep up with." Jordan remained seated beside her, listening without interrupting. He understood that sometimes people didn't need solutions, they needed someone to hear them. Evelyn's eyes drifted toward the ground. "My husband passed away 8 years ago. He used to walk this street with me every morning. After he was gone, I kept the routine, hoping it would make me feel less alone." She paused, her voice wavering slightly. "But it's different now. My children moved away for work, and I don't want to be a burden, so I try to do everything myself." Jordan nodded slowly, absorbing every word. "That must be really hard, trying to manage everything alone." "It is," she admitted, "and days like today, they remind me that I'm not as strong as I used to be." Jordan leaned forward slightly, keeping his tone steady and gentle. "Needing help doesn't make you weak, Evelyn. Everyone needs support at some point, young or old." Evelyn looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "I just miss having someone to talk to. Someone who notices when I fall. Someone who cares." Jordan offered a soft smile. "You have that today." Her eyes glistened again, but this time not only from pain, there was relief too. A quiet comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. "You're a good man, Jordan. I hope someone out there appreciates what you're doing." Jordan didn't know how to respond to that, so he simply held her gaze for a moment before looking back toward the street. The siren was closer now, echoing off the buildings. "They'll be here any minute," he said softly. Evelyn squeezed his arm gently. "Thank you for staying." Jordan nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." The siren that had been growing louder finally came into view as an ambulance turned the corner and slowed to a stop near the bench. Its lights reflected off storefront windows, drawing the attention of people nearby who began to step aside. Jordan stood up immediately, giving the paramedics room as two of them approached with calm but focused expressions. One of the medics, a woman in her 30s, knelt beside Evelyn. "Ma'am, we're here to help you. Can you tell me what happened?" she asked gently. Evelyn looked from the medic to Jordan, gathering her thoughts. "I fell. My leg gave out. This young man helped me." Jordan stepped forward slightly, clarifying without interrupting. "She slipped near the corner. Her knee started swelling right away. She couldn't stand on her own." The medic nodded appreciatively. "Thanks for staying with her. That helps us a lot." She examined Evelyn's knee, then signaled to her partner to bring the portable stretcher. Evelyn stiffened when she saw it, worry flickering across her face. Sensing her fear, Jordan moved closer so she could see him. "You're going to be okay, Evelyn. They'll take care of you." As the medics prepared to transfer her, Evelyn reached out suddenly and caught Jordan's hand with surprising strength. Her voice trembled. "Please, don't leave yet." Jordan squeezed her hand gently. "I'm right here." The medics lifted Evelyn carefully onto the stretcher. She winced but did her best to stay calm. Once she was secured, the medic asked Jordan a few more questions about what he witnessed. Jordan answered clearly, making sure Evelyn didn't feel alone during the process. Before they loaded her into the ambulance, Evelyn reached for him again. Her eyes glistened with emotion. Not fear this time but gratitude. "Jordan," she said softly, "thank you for stopping. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." Jordan leaned in so she didn't have to raise her voice. Of course. You're safe now. She held his hand a moment longer. You're a good man. I won't forget this. Jordan felt the weight of her words. He simply nodded, not trusting himself to say more. The medics gently guided him back so they could close the doors. As the ambulance prepared to pull away, Jordan gave one final reassuring wave. Evelyn lifted her hand weakly in return, her expression soft and full of trust. Then the doors shut, and the ambulance began moving toward the hospital, carrying Evelyn away and leaving Jordan standing alone on the sidewalk, unaware that this moment of kindness would soon change everything. When the ambulance finally disappeared around the corner, the street returned to its usual rhythm, cars passing, people walking, and conversations floating through the air as if nothing significant had happened. But for Jordan, the moment lingered. He stood there for a few seconds, taking a breath before remembering the interview he was supposed to be at. His stomach tightened. He pulled out his phone and checked the time. He was already well past the scheduled start. Jordan tightened his backpack strap, took one last glance in the direction the ambulance had gone, and then started running. His polished shoes slapped against the pavement as he weaved through the busy sidewalk. His heart pounded, partly from the sprint, partly from the fear that he had lost the opportunity he had worked so hard for. He turned down 2 more blocks, dodging a cyclist and murmuring a quick apology. The tall glass building where his interview was scheduled finally appeared in view. It looked intimidating on any day, but today it felt even heavier. The revolving doors glimmered in the sunlight as he pushed through them, breathless. Inside, the lobby was quiet and cool, a stark contrast to the rush outside. Jordan hurried to the front desk where a receptionist typed steadily on her computer. "Excuse me," he said, trying to steady his breathing. "I'm here for an interview, Jordan Miller. I'm running late but—" The receptionist paused, offering a polite but apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, sir. The interviews for that position ended about 15 minutes ago. The hiring panel has already left." Jordan's shoulders dropped. He pressed his lips together, trying to hide his disappointment. "Is there any chance I could still meet someone? Explain what happened?" She shook her head gently. "I wish I could help, but the schedule was very strict today. They're reviewing candidates now." For a moment, Jordan stood silently, absorbing the reality. He had done the right thing helping Evelyn, he knew that. But the weight of the lost opportunity still stung. He thanked the receptionist quietly and stepped aside so he wouldn't block the line forming behind him. Standing near the wall, he inhaled deeply, steadying himself. He whispered under his breath, "It's okay. It was worth it." He didn't know it yet, but someone else in that building had seen what happened outside earlier, and Jordan's story was far from over. Jordan stepped away from the reception desk, feeling the quiet weight of disappointment settle on his shoulders. He didn't want to make a scene, so he simply nodded politely to the receptionist and headed toward the exit. The glass doors reflected his tired expression, not defeated, but undeniably worn down by the morning's events. Still, he reminded himself of what he had told Evelyn. Her safety came first. And he meant it. As he stepped outside, the noise of the city washed over him again. He paused for a second, letting the cool air fill his lungs. He was about to walk down the steps when he heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me, young man." Jordan turned around. A well-dressed older gentleman in a dark suit stood near the lobby entrance. His hair was silver, neatly combed back, and he carried an air of authority without needing to say anything. The kind of presence that made people pay attention. Jordan straightened instinctively. "Yes, sir? Can I help you?" The older man stepped closer, studying Jordan with a thoughtful expression. "Were you the young man who helped that elderly woman earlier today? Near Westfield Avenue?" Jordan blinked, surprised. "Yes, that was me. She fell, and I just did what anyone should do." A faint smile appeared on the man's face. "Not anyone. I watched from across the street. A lot of people walked past her. But you didn't." Jordan wasn't sure how to respond. "She needed help," he said simply. The man nodded. "Most people only say that. You acted on it." There was a brief silence as the man observed him, almost evaluating him without a resume or interview questions. Then he said, "Were you here for the interview this morning?" Jordan exhaled lightly. "Yes, sir. but I missed it. I stayed with the woman until the ambulance arrived. The older man's expression softened even more. And you did again, wouldn't you? Jordan hesitated only a second. Yes, every time. The man extended his hand. Good. My name is Richard Hale. Jordan shook his hand, still confused. Nice to meet you, Mr. Hale. Richard continued. I'm the owner of this company. Jordan's eyes widened in shock. Richard noticed and chuckled. I don't believe in hiring people only for their skills. I hire for character. What I saw in you today, that's the kind of integrity money can't buy. Jordan felt his breath catch. Sir, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything yet, Richard replied, but I think we should talk. He gestured toward the building behind him. Come back inside. I'd like to hear more about you. Jordan stood frozen for a moment. The opportunity he thought he had lost was suddenly opening again in a way he never expected. Jordan followed Richard back through the glass doors of the building, still trying to process what had just happened. A few minutes earlier, he thought the entire day had slipped away from him. Now he was walking beside the owner of the company, unsure where this unexpected turn was leading. Richard walked with steady confidence, greeting employees as they passed, each one showing immediate respect. They stepped into the elevator, and Richard pressed the top floor. Jordan stood quietly, afraid to speak first. Richard glanced at him with a reassuring smile. Relax, son, you're not in trouble, he said lightly. If anything, today may be the start of something good. When the elevator opened, Jordan stepped into a large executive floor with glass walls, quiet hallways, and a panoramic view of the city. Richard led him into a private office furnished with dark wood and clean lines. It was the office of someone who had built a long, successful career. Have a seat, Richard said, closing the door behind them. Jordan sat carefully, still unsure how to navigate a conversation he never expected to have. Richard settled into the chair across from him. Before we talk about the interview you missed, he began, I want to tell you something important. In this company, we value skill. Yes, but character matters even more. Jordan listened intently. I saw the entire thing this morning. Richard continued. You didn't hesitate to help that woman. You didn't stop because it was inconvenient. And you certainly didn't walk away when you realized you'd be late. Jordan lowered his eyes slightly. It just felt like the right thing to do. Sir. That, Richard said, pointing gently, is exactly what most people don't do. And that's why I wanted to talk to you myself. Jordan looked up, a mix of hope and confusion crossing his face. The position you applied for, Richard said, leaning back, is not the only opening we have. And frankly, it's not the one I think fits you best. Jordan blinked. Sir? Richard smiled. I believe you're capable of more. Leadership isn't just about managing people, it's about how you treat them. You showed leadership today without a title, without authority, without expecting anything in return. Jordan swallowed hard, absorbing every word. So here's what I want to do. Richard continued. I'd like to personally interview you for a higher level role. One with real responsibility and real growth. Something I think you've already proven you deserve. Jordan was stunned into silence. He had come here today hoping just to get his foot in the door. Now, the owner of the company was offering him something far greater. Sir, I don't know how to thank you, he finally said. Richard smiled warmly. Start by believing you earned this chance. Richard's words lingered in the air, steady and sincere, and Jordan felt something shift inside him, a quiet realization that the morning's difficult choices had led him to a moment he never could have planned. Richard stood up and extended his hand once more. Let's schedule that interview for tomorrow morning. Come prepared, but don't overthink it. I already know the kind of person you are. Jordan rose slowly, shaking his hand with a firm, grateful grip. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Richard smiled. I'm counting on that. As Jordan left the office and stepped back into the elevator, he felt lighter than he had in months. What started as a day that seemed ruined had turned into something far beyond what he expected, not because of luck, but because he chose compassion over convenience. When he exited the building, the sun felt brighter, the city noise less overwhelming. For the first time in a long time, Jordan allowed himself to breathe fully, knowing he had earned an opportunity built on character, not chance. Later that afternoon, After gathering himself, Jordan took a bus to the hospital where the medics had taken Evelyn. He walked down the sterile hallway until he reached her room. Through the open doorway, he saw her resting in a hospital bed, her leg bandaged, her expression calm. When she noticed him, her face immediately softened with relief. "Jordan," she said warmly, "I hoped you'd come." He stepped inside, pulling up a chair beside her. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." Evelyn reached for his hand the same way she had earlier that morning. But this time her grip was steady. "I am now. The doctors say I'll need a bit of therapy. But nothing too serious." Then she studied him carefully. "And what about your interview? Did you get there in time?" Jordan hesitated, then smiled. "No, I missed it." Evelyn's expression fell, but before she could speak, he added, "But something better happened, much better." Her eyes brightened with curiosity. "The owner of the company saw everything," Jordan explained. "He offered me another interview for a higher position. He said he wants people who lead with integrity." Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Jordan, that's wonderful. You deserve it." He squeezed her hand gently. "I think helping you led me exactly where I needed to be." Evelyn nodded, a peaceful smile settling on her face. Kindness always finds its way back. Jordan left the hospital that evening with a renewed sense of purpose. What began as a simple act of compassion had changed two lives, Evelyn's and his own. And as he walked into the sunset, he knew this was only the beginning of something extraordinary.